Welcome to Surviving the Side Hustle podcast, the place where expert-based business owners learn how to build momentum, avoid burnout, and create sustainable success on their own terms. I'm your host, Rob Tracz, strength and conditioning specialist turned founder and CEO of Prime Performance Coaching, the personal performance strategy firm for high-achieving business owners and operators. I partner with driven entrepreneurs to implement the Prime Performance process, an awareness-based operating system that's helped me and countless solopreneurs and small business owners evolve from just being high performers on the edge of burnout to prime performers building sustainable success. The impact of Prime Performance process has led me here, where I'll show you how to get unstuck and design your own Prime Performance life without sacrificing your health, relationships, or sanity. So whether you're hustling after hours or scaling your passion project, today and here, you're going to get real stories, science-backed strategies, and practical frameworks to help you excel every step of your journey. It's time. Let's get intentional, build momentum, and become prime performers together. We'll get started just after this message. If you're an ambitious business owner or side hustler who's ready for a breakthrough, tired of spinning your wheels, looking to slide past burnout and build real momentum, I'd love to invite you to book a free Prime Performance strategy session with me or one of our strategists. This is your chance to get personalized insight on what's been holding you back and get a clear path to move forward. No fluff, just actionable strategy. So if you're interested, visit survivingthesidehustle.com/free call to request your spot now. Again, that's survivingthesidehustle.com/free call. Looking forward to helping you become a prime performer. All right, what's going on? And welcome back to a Friday recap of Surviving the Side Hustle. Like usual, I'd love to kick it off by asking you a question. And this week's question is, how many times this week have you pushed through something your body was trying to tell you to stop? For example, you've ignored the headache, you ignored the tight chest, you pounded another coffee instead of taking a breath, and you kept going because that's what high performers do, right? We push, we grind, we override, and we optimize. But here's the truth. Most of us aren't burnt out from working too hard. We're burnt out from ignoring the signals that were trying to save us. And if that hits, you're going to want to stick around for this entire episode. This week on Surviving the Side Hustle, I sat down my good friend, Daniel Sears. Dan's the founder of NeuroGenesis, a nervous system performance company built for high pressure humans, athletes, executive founders, and just people who are going through big shifts or carrying a lot of weight and need a way to actually recover so that they can keep showing up. And what makes Dan different is he didn't just study this stuff. He lived it. Air Force veteran, then a divorcee, a move, the loss of his community, all of this all happened at once. Chest pains, mold sickness, a system that was short-circuiting. He was the guy who looked fine on the outside and was falling apart underneath. Does that sound familiar to you? He came out the other side with a methodology built around nervous system reset, neurofeedback, heart-brain coherence, and somatic work. That's the world he's building. NeuroGenesis is all about. So this week's full episode with Dan is a conversation. And it's not some woo-woo detour. This is the missing layer underneath everything we talk about on this show. Because you have all the strategies in the world, but if your nervous system is fried, you can't execute on any of it. So here's the angle I want to recap this episode through for you. Most entrepreneurs that I work with think their problem is strategy. They need a better offer, a better funnel, a better pitch, more discipline, or maybe it's just more willpower. But that's what Dan said in this episode that I can't stop thinking about. When pressure rises, the nervous system shifts. And when the nervous system shifts, your access to clarity disappears. Your access to patience disappears. Your access to intuition also disappears. So you're not actually solving a strategy problem. You're solving a capacity problem. and no amount of grinding is going to fix the capacity problem. That's the lens I want you to listen through for the rest of this recap clip. Number one thing, though, to take away is that the body keeps the score. So whether you're listening or not, Dan described hitting the wall as a ton of bricks falling on me. Not subtle, not gentle. It's health issues, chest pains, mold sickness, a nervous system that was short-circuiting. And here's what most people miss. Your body was sending signals long before the bricks actually fell. It was whispering. Then it was tapping you on the shoulder. Then it was tugging on your sleeve. And when you kept ignoring it, it started screaming. This is where entrepreneurs get stuck. We treat the body like a vehicle we drive into the ground and then blame it for breaking down. But your body isn't working against you. It's the most honest feedback system that you've got. This is a lot of what I coach inside one of my principles. I've got a whole framework around this, but the core idea is that substantial and sustainable performance isn't about how hard you can push. It's about how well you can read and respect the pace your system can actually hold. You can't outrun your biology. Another thing I want you to remember, though, is that the heart has its own intelligence. That's right. This conversation is part that really stuck out to me because I hadn't heard this before. Dan talked about the fact that we have three major clusters of neurons in the body: the brain and the gut, which is most commonly understood, but also the heart. And the heart's neurons, about 40,000 of them, are connected directly to the brain via the vagus nerve. And the signal coming from the heart to the brain is roughly 10 times more information than the signal going the other way around. Now, listen to that again. Your heart is sending 10 times more information to your brain than your brain is sending to your heart. And most of us, we're spending all of our time up in our head trying to think our way through everything. Meanwhile, our heart has the answer and we're not the ones listening. You can't outthink a question your heart is trying to answer. And then finally, another lesson I want you to take away here is anxiety is a signal collision. This is the reframe of the year. Dan said anxiety, that tight chest, that racing pulse, that I feel it in my throat kind of thing, is literally two signals colliding in your nervous system. It's your brain saying, I need to think my way out of this, while your heart is saying, I already have the answer, just be still and trust. Two messages going opposite directions, meeting in the middle. See, that's anxiety, not a character flaw, not weakness, not something to medicate away. A signal collision. So you might be asking, what's the fix? And it's not thinking harder. The fix is getting quiet enough to actually hear what the heart is saying. So the collision stops. If you're an entrepreneur living with low-grade anxiety as your baseline, I want you to hear this. Isn't that you're broken. The problem is that you've trained yourself to only listen to one frequency. The one that's the loudest, the one in your head. And there's a whole other intelligence that's been trying to guide you this entire time. So I want to just kind of bring back up a fact on Dan. So he was in the military, and he was telling on the story here that, or the full episode, that the military is what made him strong, but it also made him deaf. I asked Dan about his Air Force background because I wanted to know how that shaped him as an individual and as an entrepreneur. And his answer was honest in a way that most people really aren't. He said the military built his resilience, his focus, his ability to override his body's signals and just execute. That training made him who he is, but it also left him disconnected from his own intuition, from his own body, from the wisdom that was trying to talk to him the entire time. And here's why that matters to you. A lot of us built our entrepreneurial muscles the same way. We learned to ignore the signals, ignore the tired, ignore the tight chest, ignore the resentment, and ignore the gut feeling about that client, that deal, that partner. We call it discipline, and we cover it up by calling it hustle or grind. But somewhere along the way, the skill that built you becomes the skill that breaks you. The override that got you here is the same override that's going to burn you out if you don't learn when to turn it off. The strongest people know aren't the ones who can push through anything in the world. They're the ones who can tell the difference between a moment that needs pushing and a moment that needs listening. So finally, as we kind of wrapping up here, I wanted to share another little story that Dan shared. So on the episode, full episode, by the way, you could check it out if you haven't yet, but Dan told a story that I'm not going to forget. He was working with an executive, a deeply religious woman who's been praying and meditating for years, but always felt like she couldn't get past the noise. He put the neurofeedback device on her, and at one specific moment, something shifted. He said he literally felt the energy change in the room, wrote down the exact time. When she came out of it, she told him that she'd finally broken through. She felt like she was sitting with God. And when they checked the data, she'd spiked into a gamma brainwave state, what some people call the God brainwave, right at the moment that she felt the shift and what Dan felt that energy change in the room. Now, whatever you believe in about the spiritual piece, focus on what happened mechanically, though. She'd been trying to get there for years on willpower alone. When she got the right conditions, like the right tools, the right feedback, and the right guidance, she got there in one single session. This is basically the whole thesis of one of my frameworks in prime performance coaching. There's a framework behind the whole concept of generating luck and creating opportunity. But the short version, to save you guys time, is what most people call luck or magic or finally breaking through is actually the result of engineered conditions. You don't have to hope for it to happen. You can set up the environment where it becomes repeatable. So towards the end of the conversation I had with Dan, I asked him if in a perfect world, we could access these deeper states, like the calm, the clarity, the creative flow, if we could do it on demand. And he laughed and said, it's 2026. If it's not on demand, what are we even doing? But he meant it seriously. That's the whole point of the work. Not that you have one transcendent moment on a yoga retreat once a year. The point is building the capacity to access calm, clarity, creativity whenever you actually need them. That's the difference between someone who has had peak performance and someone who can deliver peak performance. One was a moment and the other is a skill. This is actually the exact thing I unpacked in my TEDx talk. But here's what I want you to walk away from with this episode. You don't have a discipline problem. You don't have a motivation problem. You don't have a strategy problem. You probably have a signal problem. Your body's been trying to coach you your entire life. Your heart has been sending 10 times more information than your brain can process. Your gut has been whispering the truth about that client, that deal, that direction, and you've been too busy thinking to hear any of it. The work isn't to push harder. The work is to listen better. So if this hit you the same way that it hit me, you're going to want to go deeper with Dan. Remember, his company is called NeuroGenesis, and you can find everything about NeuroGenesis and more about Dan himself at liveneurogenesis.com, livenesis.com. I'll put it in the show notes for you guys to check it out. And that's where you can also sign up for the Brain Reset Circle, which is how most people get started with the neurofeedback protocol and the community all around it. You can also follow him on Instagram at danielsears.co and at liveneurogenesis. He's doing concierge healing work with individuals. He's partnering with gyms and retreat centers, and he's about to open his first in-person location. Dan, thank you again, my man, for coming on and having the conversation with me. And I hope everybody else got a huge value out of this recap along with the full episode. So before I finally finish things up, I want to leave you with a question for this week. What is your body currently telling you that you keep overriding? Don't answer it fast. Don't answer it in your head. I want you to actually sit with it for a moment. Take a breath, see what comes up. Again, what is your body currently trying to tell you, but you keep overriding? Because I'll bet you already know the answer. And I'll bet that knowing it for a while too. And I'll actually even bet the reason you haven't acted on it is because some part of you thinks you can't afford to slow down right now. Here's the truth. You can't afford not. The people who build something that lasts aren't the ones who outwork everyone. They're the ones who learn, eventually, to listen to the systems that they've been trying to coach the whole time. That's the work this week. Now go listen. I'll catch you on Tuesday with the next guest episode. Until then, stay sharp, stay aligned, and keep surviving the side hustle. Peace, peace, peace. That's all for today's episode of Surviving the Side Hustle. If you found value here, please don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening from. And please create a shared success by helping us share this episode with someone who you think would benefit from today's conversation. And finally, don't forget to connect with us at survivingthesidehustle.com and give us a follow on socials so that we can take part in following along in your entrepreneurial journey. Until next time, remember, success doesn't require a complete sacrifice, just strategy, momentum, and the right support.